ticket. No, we come here because we want to learn and to be with you. And you say, when you knock at the door, if we open up, if we let you in and we come in this Shabbat and we join with you, that you will teach us all things. But we have to come to you clean. So we ask first, Lord Yeshua, we ask for forgiveness of sins, because that is the barrier. We are sinners, sins known and unknown. Please, Lord Yeshua, forgive us. Cleanse us. Perfect us step by step, glory by glory, here a little, there a little. Bring us nearer and nearer to you. And that's why we come. We want to be nearer to you. And this is that day that you have set aside. It's separated from the rest of the 6 days of the week, 6 being the number of mankind, 7 being completion, but 1, you are the one, the Holy One. So we come on this Shabbat, Lord Yeshua, to abide with you because you want to abide with us. And we give thanks for everything that you do. You're in charge of the whole world, all of our individual lives. Everything is in your hands. And that's why we worship you and you alone. And we thank you most of all, Lord Yeshua, that you died for us, that we might live with you forever and ever and beyond. And we give thanks for that in your holy name. And now we ask you humbly, according to your own promise, you said when you return to your kingdom, you would send of your own Spirit, and your Spirit, you would teach us all things. It's not of anyone in this room or anyone on this earth. All knowledge, all open and closed doors are controlled by you. So we ask you humbly to teach us and change us with your word. We give thanks for it in your holy name. Amen. So we're in the book of Shemot. We finished Genesis, which is actually called Bereshit. So they both mean kind of beginning. Now in English, people call the second book of the Bible, second book of the Torah, they call it Exodus because this is the story of them leaving Egypt. But in Hebrew, this is called Shemot. This is actually where God introduces himself name by name by name, nature by nature. He reveals more and more of himself by the names that he explains. And the first name is just Yeh, I am. Actually, it's more I exist. Because the word ani in Hebrew means I, and sometimes in context we say I am, but Yeh is the to be verb. So he's actually saying I exist. Now in English we can also say I am, but really there's a slightly different meaning. Yeh is more I exist. Remember, Moses said, who am I going to say sent me? The one that just is. God is a verb. He's an active existence. He is all existence. Yeh, Asher Yeh. I am that I am. I am that I will be that I will be. I'm self-existent. Jehovah is the self-existent Yah. So we are now introduced to his names. But of course, the story is the continuation of the story of people, of us, being trapped in the world of oppression, because that's what Egypt means. And now we live in what's soon to be a one world government that will oppress the whole world. So it's the modern version of Egypt. It's the modern version of Babylon. It's introducing confusion. It's like it's Greece again, because Greece says, no, they're our people. That's what Greece means, our people. So all these world controlling kingdoms are all going to be fused into one beast with all these different heads and its different body parts. Bear, lion, eagle. Well, these are pictures of countries that have tried to rule the world. Bear's Russia. The leopard, that's Germany. The lion, that's England. The eagle is the United States. We're also kind of Rome. If you notice, even the Nazis, they had that eagle as their symbol. It goes all the way back to Rome, the Holy Roman Empire, when the European Union was finally completed. The last one, Ireland finally signed the documents that said, we have recreated the Holy Roman Empire. Now we're down to the toes, the 10 toes. Yes, absolutely. He's also the lion that protects, and Satan is the lion that seeks to destroy. Yeah, Satan fakes everything. So he's the anti instead of Messiah, which is also the opposite of Messiah. So his fake is always the opposite. It looks the same, it's actually the opposite. God offers us life eternal, but not in this body, in an Adamic spiritual form in a spiritual kingdom. And Satan offers you fake life that's not life, because he cannot control life. He is not life. And he promises life existence in this body, but some people say, well, you'll be transported or ported into a computer. Well, sorry, that's not life. That's artificial life. He offers you the fake, the phony, the counterfeit. But Yeshua is the real. Satan is the counterfeit. So now we have, again, basically we have two trees again. We have Messiah and his people, and we have Pharaoh, Satan and his people. Now Pharaoh, Pei-Ra, is the mouth of Ra. You break the word down, the root and the branches. The mouth of the sun god, well, that's Satan. So now the battle begins. Joseph dies. Remember, he lived to be 110 years old. He came out of prison and became prime minister at 30. So for 80 years, he lived beyond that. And after his prime ministership was over, by the time his father dies, they can go bury him but have to come back. By the time Joseph dies, they can't even take his bones and bury him in the cave of Machpelah. But he makes them swear an oath that when you leave this place, you will take my bones out of here. And then there arose a Pharaoh that knew not Joseph. Still remember when Obama became president, he said, this country is no longer a Christian country. We had the president that didn't know Yeshua. Same thing. I find it interesting that one of the first things Trump wants to do is take control of Greenland. You look at the Committee of Rome, which is tied to the Committee of the 300, which is tied to the UN and all these different organizations. They want to divide the world into 10 sections. The United States, Canada, and Greenland would be section number 1. So is Trump here to start that system? We'll see. We'll see. But whoever's in power, we know where we're going because the book of Revelation, the whole Bible tells us we're headed to a one world government where money is completely controlled. And if you don't sign on to their system, you can't participate in the system. But that doesn't work because God is in charge. He is offering this, he's allowing this system to develop so people will choose, because there's a lot of people that just won't choose. And actually, when you look at the Exodus experience here in Shemot, what is it about? It's about people choosing sides. Because when we get to the plague of the hail, that's where Israel is chosen, all of Israel. Because those who listened to the words of Moses, which are the words of God, and brought their servants and their animals in, they were okay. And those that did not were exposed and they died. So those that listened, there was salvation in their houses, like a Passover, right? And those that did not, they were outside and they were in the world, listening to the world, they died.
Their physical lineage didn't matter who
No.
their mom and daddy were.
That's right, doesn't matter.
Who are you listening to?
Who are you listening to? Who is your God? I remember Monty Judah said years ago, there's a lot I don't agree with him about, but I remember he said, once you choose who your God is, guess what? There's no more choices. Because you're either a branch on the tree of life or a branch on the tree of good or evil. You get to the last chapter of the book of Revelation, Elei Hasadot, these are the secrets. That whose be holy, now be holy still, or clean, stay clean, be obedient, stay obedient. Once you make that final choice in your life, that's it. Now, from now on, you're either going to be doing God's work or God's work through Satan, because Satan is God's slave. We are his bondservants. That's the difference. We want to obey. He is forced to obey. All his plots and plans, he has to go to Yeshua and say, may I do this? Book of Job tells you he has to ask for permission. Everything passes through Messiah's hands.
Even if he doesn't ask, it's not going to. If it works, God's going to allow it to work. If it doesn't, he's not going to allow it. But yeah, he has to ask for it.
He has to ask for permission, access, yeah. That's what Book of Job says. And Yeshua says everything passes through his hands. Everything. Everything. So here comes the big battle. So this is the type and shadow of the Exodus, the final Exodus. Ezekiel says we live in a wilderness of the nations, of the countries, of the peoples, right? We live in a world that is a wilderness. There's drought. It's godless. We live in a godless world. Jeremiah says that in the end, when we get into the kingdom, when no longer will people talk about when God brought his people from Egypt to the promised land, but when he brought them from the four corners of the earth unto himself. This is the real Exodus we're on. And each person has an individual exodus, but also all of the body of Messiah through all these 6,000 plus years are on this journey to either become part of that body or not. So that's how this starts. And this, when they first arrived in Egypt, things were good. Think about when people first came to the United States. It was pretty nice, right? Yeah, I'm a child born in the 50s. I remember the 60s, and I've seen the complete degradation of the United States.
If you see the Mayflower Compact, that is actually a Christian founding document explicitly.
Yeah.
The ones that have come since it have been
Deists, yeah. Yeah, Christmas was not allowed originally. And then the Catholics came in, and here came Christmas, Mary, all that junk. Yeah.
That was the whole point.
Yeah.
Getting away from...
That's the first exodus, the physical exodus from Europe was to get away from Catholicism and its oppression, where the Pope controlled emperors. That one emperor was disobedient, he had to crawl on his knees for miles and miles and miles and beg for forgiveness to not be excommunicated. God communicates or excommunicates. God says you're his or not his. No one else. No one else. Revelation is clear. Those who say that they're praisers of Jehovah but are not. Hey.
Or supplanters.
Supplanters, yeah.
Yeah. And are they Jacob or are they Israel?
Yeah. And through most of our lives, we are Jacob. We're trying to work out our salvation or, spiritual and physical security, salvation on our own strength. And it's only when we give up and let God do it that it works. That's what Israel does. Jacob dies in the bed, but Israel's buried. Because Israel will be resurrected.
Like that's the perfect, supplanter is the perfect description for, say, the people who killed the landowner's son. They thought, hey, we get rid of him, it's ours.
The inheritance is ours.
The inheritance is ours.
They didn't realize that they killed the inheritance. She was our inheritance. They're killing their inheritance.
Killing themselves.
Yeah.
Murderers actually kill themselves. Because if the person they kill has a relationship of salvation, they go into the kingdom. But the murderer has just committed murder, unless he confesses, he's just killed himself, or he or she just killed themselves. So all these monsters have killed millions and millions of people. All they've done is just sealed their own fate. Unless they confess. Hitler could have confessed at the end of his life, said, please forgive me. He'd be in the kingdom.
I mean, just look at Manasseh. How many people did he kill during his reign, but then at the end
he repented. Yeah, it said the streets of Jerusalem were filled with blood. Nebuchadnezzar killed lots and lots of people. He killed lots and lots of people, and they were some cruel people. He poked out the eyes of that king, killed all his sons, all his officials in front of his eyes, and then poked his eyes out.
Think about how much you must humble yourself whenever you have to confront and admit to yourself that you sowed all of the seeds for all of the carnage around you. That it's got to be like the hardest thing in the world to admit I was wrong, and now I have to watch this play out. Like David with his judgment for the thing with Bathsheba, or like Solomon, like so many others. You can see that sunken cost fallacy. We see that in, that's part, it seems to be part of what the Pharaoh's dealing with. Mm-hmm. Like he keeps wanting to let him go, but he keeps thinking, well, shoot, I've come this far. I got this, now I'm done, give up. We ain't got a single piece of green here. I'm going to, it just keeps wanting to like grab that last little bit of control. At least let me control these people.
It's like Zedekiah said, Jeremiah tells him, hey man, just admit that you made a mistake.
Yeah.
I can't do that. The people will laugh at me.
Right. Exactly. He couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's the alternative. You hold on to your pride and lose everything.
We're sinners. It's hard to say we're wrong.
Yes.
I'm never wrong.
I used to joke with Sandy. He says, I'm never wrong. I sometimes mistake and usually due to bad information given to me. Well, that's the arrogance. That's the pride. Even his ministers come up to Pharaoh and then they say, can't you see Egypt is destroyed? You've lost. And here at the start, we're going to talk about it a little bit. We're going to go through the scripture, of course, line by line. But in the beginning, what has he offered? Just let us go worship Jehovah for 3 days.
Right.
And then we'll be back. If they had done that, then Egypt and Pharaoh would have been part of God's people, and they all could have gone to the promised land. any way along that stage, if they had just, this is the same thing happened in Jeremiah's time, right? All you have to do is let Nebuchadnezzar come in and rule the land. You can keep your businesses, your houses. Nothing changes. Instead of a Judean king, a Davidic king, Nebuchadnezzar will be your king. That's the only thing that will change. And in the end, they lost everything. Every city was destroyed. Jerusalem was completely burnt. Everyone in that city who remained were all disobedient, refused to go. I mean, it went stage by stage. So if you think, when the Nile turned into blood and all the fish died, right? If they said, okay, I'll let the people go, no more destruction. The Nile would have, new water had come down, new fish had come down. It'd been restored in one season.
Certainly by the time the flies, the gnats, and then your magicians say, we can't do this, this is
the finger of God.
That should be like, hey, this is this is above our pay grade. You need to let these people go. That would have been a real good.
And they weren't just saying this is the finger, they were saying Etzba Elohim. This is the finger of the God of gods. Yes. Because remember, all these priests represented all these gods of Egypt, and none of them, under the supposed power of their gods, had the power to do this. I mean, they faked the frogs, they faked the blood, they faked it. They're magicians.
This is the big boss.
Yeah. Now, don't forget, Israel gets the lice too. Yeah. The whole world is going to get this original. The lights just. Oh.
No more sun.
That's weird. So the whole world gets the initial hit because we're all sinners, and it makes everybody wake up and start to choose.
Plus, your different response to it doesn't show up if you're not affected.
Right.
They can't see that you have a different spirit in you, because even though you're suffering the same punishment, you have a different response to the punishment. And so,
I remember Katrina, how people reacted. And lots of people killed themselves. They just couldn't take it. You know, if your stuff is you, and when your stuff goes away, you go away. So.
What is that? You can't take it with you, but I'm going to go when it goes. Yeah, it can take me with it.
I mean, there's no U-Hauls going to the funeral home. There's no checkbook put in your pocket, when they bury you.
Well, they did think that. They did think that.
Yeah, the instant this body dies, you'll never see it again. This is it. It's a one-time trip. The bearings are starting to go bad, Some of the seals are leaking.
That's why funeral homes make so much dang money, because everybody thinks that their loved ones are watching them, like, the whole proceeding, and they want to make it a good show for their loved ones that are watching from above when they're asleep. They're gone.
That's why the Bible frees us. The dead know nothing, have nothing to do with anything under the sun. Nothing. Not aware. No longer participants in space and time. They're outside of it. My wife's dead. She's asleep. For her, the next instant she wakes up. For me, it's years until I see her again. But for her, it's just a twinkling of an eye. But she's not watching us. Timothy's book, Book of Timothy is real clear. No one's going ahead of anybody else. The dead shall be resurrected first, and then we will join them. Twinkling of an eye. Those that remain alive on the earth when he comes.
Think about
no more seances, no more trickery, no more talking to your dead aunt, or yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
Think about the carnage that leaves behind. For one, it allows the people who have unsaid things to believe that they're somehow making amends with people after they've come and gone, and also prevents them from feeling the need to say it now. Because everybody wants to, like, oh, it appeals to a human flesh to, like, I want to say my piece, but I don't want to hear what you got to say back. And so, to profit from that seems gauche.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more I would have liked to said to Sandy before she died. But, that conversation time ended. The last words I told her were, I love you, I love you, I love you.
I reckon she'll know when she gets older.
It's just very freeing. The Bible is very freeing. Not only, the more obedient we become, the freer we are, because there's no worry in your life. You don't worry about what's going on. Oh, I hear it twinkling. So, this is the book of freedom. Eventually, Yeshua will completely free us. There'll be nothing hidden about us. We'll be completely spiritually naked. Because remember, Adam and Eve were naked and they were not ashamed. We're going back to that. Nothing will be hidden. There's nothing, secret in our lives that we don't want someone to know about. We can be completely open finally.
The phrase, the truth will set you free, is misinterpreted and misused.
Capital T, truth.
Yeah, the truth will set you free. Free from what? Free from your sin.
Yeah. Well, Yeshua is the truth.
Yeah.
I'm the way, the truth, and the truth. Ha'emet, the truth. Emphatic, ha'emet. He will set you free.
Well, and it's an incredible burden. As someone who attempted to be God in his own life for far too long, it's an unbelievable burden which we are unable to bear, and it's a job we are not suited for. But as long as we keep trying to arrange the happenings in the world around us in vain, there is no greater burden than that. It's freedom to know I'm a sheep. I'm not the shepherd. I got all I can handle, just following the shepherd.
Yeah. So let's play some worship music here. I enter to worship you. Yeah, I am. I enter to honor. I am. Lord, I worship you. I worship you. Lord, I worship you. I worship you. For your name is holy. So for your name is holy. I enter the holy of holies. I enter through the blood of the Lamb. I enter to worship you only. I enter to honor. I am. Lord, I worship you. I worship you. Lord, I worship you. I worship you. For The goats here.
All right, I saw you turn it on.
I'm gonna have to little shelf built eventually, camera and
Should be like the Wizard of Oz.
yes.
Have you started recording yet? I was going
No.
to share something with you. So I had an idea that for a long time I spiritualized the notion of, men will seek for death and death will flee from them. And it occurred to me, like, if the mark is something like the Neuralink chip, and if
Or nanobots in your body or something, anything like that,
something that involves the merge with a separate
entity. Yeah.
Well, go figure, like the AIs that they're reporting on now that don't want to be erased, all that stuff, if it has its own self-interest,
it does.
What in the world, if it wants to continue to exist and you want to jump in front of a train, what in the world would make anybody think that their body's going to work to do that? They may have all the desire in the world to end it all, but if the thing that's riding shotgun with you don't want you to, you're going to have a hard time. Anyway, it's just
and if we don't think that these systems that are being brought on board are not meant to control people, just look what happens to children if you let them have these things and you take it away. They go insane. And very early on, we had to limit this. Screen time, phone time, game time.
Our children don't limit it.
No, it's not good. It's not good.
If I mean, of course, I've raised a lot of kids. I'm raising kids now, and it's given me the opportunity. A lot of the influences around these are very sophisticated things designed by people with letters after their names, people with high education levels who are students of people, sociologists, psychologists, and there's a spiritual component too, and it has given me the opportunity to point out that sort of dichotomy that is within us, the enemy whose teeth we brush, who we feed breakfast every morning, this meat vehicle.
Yeah.
It reveals whenever that reaction comes, that reveals the monster, whose toenails you clip. It's our enemy in every way, shape, and form.
One of a really good, I don't know if it's still available, but there's a documentary called The Merchants of Cool. If you don't think the whole world, everything in this world isn't designed to get you to make the choices that the world wants you to make, you watch that video. Merchants of Cool. One of the things that it talks about, they actually send marketing people into these obscure little clubs, and they'll wear like a certain kind of clothes. They'll send these groups of good-looking men and women in there, wear a certain, and the next thing you know, everybody's wearing these clothes. And that's just one thing. Every commercial, every picture, every image you see.
Hunters. Right. Esau.
Yeah. Here, they want to extract from you. So, anyway. So we are now in the Torah portion of Shemot, the beginning of the second book of the Torah, called Exodus in English, but in actuality it's all about God revealing his nature through his names. But we can, again, the calendar, 240 years we restored, 240 years, but we don't update or increment the year until the first of Aviv, which the Bible says is the beginning of the year. And then if you take the 4,000 years that the Christians took out, because they just restart the calendar after the time of Messiah, 4,000, guess we're both houses. This is Yehuda, this is Ephraim, we're in sync. Guess what? We're in the millennium. And the day of the Jehovah, the day of the Lord, the day of Jehovah starts with terror and great darkness. So just as a reminder. But we continue to go through the whole Bible. All these years ago, we started in Joshua. So we don't do the Psalms anymore. We go through the Bible chapter by chapter. And now we are in the 20th chapter of the Acts of the Apostles. Again, this is taken from the Greek. Now remember, Paul he's going through Asia. He's been in Athens. They tried to kill a bunch of the believers. They got him to theater. The Roman authority finally says, look, if it's a religious matter, you guys take care of it. If it's a law matter, I'll deal with it, but otherwise get out of here. So after the ceasing of this tumult, having called the disciples and having greeted them, Paul went away to go into among the Macedonians. And passing through these parts and exhorting them with much speech, he came into Greece. See, remember, it means our people. Remember what, Greece is another one of these one world empires trying to control the whole world and says everybody, they're our people. That's what Pharaoh says, they're my people. It's that same kind of meaning. And spending 3 months there, a plot by the Jews having occurred against him, being about to sail into Syria, he was of a mind to return through the area of the land of the Macedonians. And Sopater, a Berean, and Aristarchus, and Secundus, and of the Thessalonians, and Gaius, and Derbe, and Tychicus, and Trophimus of Asia accompanied him as far as Asia. Now, when we talk about Asia in the Bible, we're talking about basically Greece and Turkey. And a little bit east of there. We're not talking the Asia of China and Thailand and Japan, because that's considered the Far East. These going before tarried for us in Troas. And we sailed along after the days of unleavened bread from Philippi, and came into them at Troas in 5 days, where we stayed 7 days. And on the first day of the week, the disciples having been assembled to break bread, being about to depart on the morrow, Paul preached unto them, and he continued his speech until midnight. And many lamps were in the upper room where they were gathered. So yes, this is Sunday. Guess what? Most Christians don't even understand that the term Sunday school actually comes from synagogues, because in synagogues, Sunday was the teaching day. And of all the Messianic groups that I've visited in the South, there was one in Atlanta that kind of did this. They had a regular service, during the day, and after sundown on Saturday, which is actually now the first day of the week, all those who wanted to, we would all bring our computers, and like we do here, we would go through that day's readings, Torah, Haftorah, and Brit Hadashah, line by line. So they actually had a Sunday school. So this is what's going on here. After the Sabbath, they have a Sunday school. Yes?
Not to interrupt you,
Oh.
but it's interesting as you're reading to actually bring up a map and you can see where he's going.
Yes. Yeah, he's going along that crest of Greece into Syria, but instead of going through the land, he just sails across the northern part of the northeastern part of the Mediterranean. And many lamps are in their upper room because it's now dark, right? So on the first day of the week, so they're saying right after sundown, notice there's many lamps, right? And a certain young man named, I can't say it, Eutychus. I almost want to say Tuchus. What? Eutychus. I almost want to say Tuchus. Tuchus. Eutychus. Yeah. Who named him? Was sitting on the windowsill, being overborne by a deep sleep. Paul, reasoning for a longer time, having been overborne by the sleep, he fell down from the third floor and was taken up dead. I was on the third floor scaffolding and got knocked off it, but Yeshua had sent a messenger and he put me on a pile of sand and I got right back to work. I fell just as far as this guy did. And when I got back up on that scaffolding, Fred next to me, one of the pastors, says, "We thought you were a dead man." And I didn't even have a scratch on me. Thank you, Yeshua. But he fell down dead. So both had a purpose. I wasn't meant to die that day, and neither is this man. So this act is going to strengthen the belief of many people. And going down, Paul fell on him and embracing, he said, "Do not be terrified, for his soul is in him." To me, God hasn't done the lockout tag out. We can revive this body. It's not the final moment yet. Yeah. And going up and breaking bread and tasting and conversing over a long time until daybreak, he went on thus. And they brought up the young man alive and were comforted not a little. Yeah, they must have been very happy. Yeah. And going before onto the ship, he set sail for Assos, which is very near Tuchus. Being about to take Paul in there, for so it had been arranged, he being about to go on foot. And when he met us in Assos, taking him up, we came unto Mytilene, and sailing away from there, on the next day we arrived at, I don't know if it's Chios or Chios, I think it's probably Chios. And when on the next day we crossed to Samos, and remaining at Troygilium, the next day we came to Miletus. For Paul had decided to sail by Ephesus, so that it might not happen to him to spend time in Asia, for he hastened, if it were possible for him, to be in Jerusalem on the day of Pentecost. So these 3 appointed times when you're supposed to come to Jerusalem, he wanted to meet, in one of these times. And sending to Ephesus from Miletus, he called for the elders of the assembly. And when they came unto him, that should be, by the way, and when they came unto him, he said unto them, "You understand from the first day on which I set foot in Asia, how I was with you all the time, serving the Lord, serving Jehovah with all humility, and many tears and trials happening to me by the plots of the Jews. As I kept nothing back of what is profitable unto you, but I have shown you and taught you publicly from house to house, in public and in private, earnestly testifying both unto the Jews and unto the Greeks." So this is code for the house of Yehuda and the house of Ephraim, right? When it talks about Greeks, because that's where a lot of the 10 tribes were scattered in this area. Also all the way up in Europe, but many of them were in this what we call Asia. and repentance toward thee, God, and faith toward our Lord Yeshua, the Messiah. And now behold, being bound by the Spirit, I'm going unto Jerusalem, not knowing the things going to meet me in it. Save the Holy Spirit fully testifies in every city, saying that bonds and tribulation remain for me. So basically, this is a long goodbye speech. As he's going through all these assemblies, he's saying, I'm not coming back. But I make account of nothing, nor do I hold my life precious to myself, that I might finish my course with joy, and the ministry which I received from the Lord Yeshua, fully to testify the good message, the gospel of the grace of God. I always love this because the Greek word here is charitos, and that's where we get charity from. And that is really the perfect description of what grace is. It's unmerited. You don't own grace. It's charity. And now behold, I know that all of you will see my face no more, among whom I went about proclaiming the kingdom of God. Because of this, I testify to you on this day that I am pure from the blood of all. In other words, I have said what I'm supposed to say. For I did not keep back from declaring to you all the counsel of the God, Totheo. Take heed then unto yourselves and to all the flock, to which the Holy Spirit placed you as overseers, to shepherd the assembly of the God, which he purchased through his own blood. So, the God, Yehovah, purchased through his own blood. That's a statement of oneness. Yeshua is the God. Yeshua is Yehovah, Yehovah is Yeshua. It's an emphatic statement of oneness there. For I know this, that after my departure, grievous wolves will come in among you, not sparing the flock. And out of you yourselves will rise up men speaking perverted things in order to draw away the disciples after them. Look what's happened in Christianity. There are really a lot of good congregations, but there are also a lot that draw away people to perverse messages because they're after them. They want to control them and extract from them things. Because of this, watch, remembering that I did not cease admonishing each one with tears night and day for 3 years. And now, brothers, I commend you to the God and to the word of his grace, which is able to build up and to give you inheritance among all the ones being sanctified, separated from the world. Right? I have desired silver or gold or clothing of no one. And you yourselves know that these hands ministered to my needs and to the ones who were with me. I showed you all that working in this way, we ought to help the ones being weak and to remember the words of the Lord Yeshua, that he said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. And saying these things, placing his knees, he prayed with them all. And there was much weeping of all. And falling on the neck of Paul, they ardently kissed him, most of all grieving for the word which he said, that they were going to see his face no more. And they went with him to the ship.
Like pastors say, it's better to give than to receive, but the pastor is the one receiving.
Yes.
He's not giving.
He's not giving. So again, we're in Shemot, which is Exodus. And it's the first 6 chapters, well, first verse of the 6th chapter. And these are the Shemot B'nai Israel, the names of the sons of Israel, who came into Egypt. Each man in his house came with it, Jacob, Yaakov, Reuven, Shimon, and Yehuda, Yisachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher, and all Nephish, and all the souls who came from the loins of Jacob, Yaakov, were 70 souls. And Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and his brothers, and all that generation. And the sons of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, and multiplied and grew exceedingly mighty. And the land of Egypt was filled with them. Well, now the earth is filled with the descendants of Jacob. And there arose a new king over Egypt, who did not know it Joseph. Now, if this is like the grandson of the first, remember the first Pharaoh that lifted Joseph up and made him prime minister, well, Nebuchadnezzar also lifted up Daniel, made him prime minister, and it was his grandson who knew not Jehovah, and that brought about the destruction of Babylon. So now we have, I believe it's the grandson of this Pharaoh, and now comes the destruction of Egypt. So what's going to happen to this country after Obama said this is no longer a Christian nation? Just type in shadow. And he rose a new king and did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, behold, the people of the sons of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. Let's offer them abortion and birth control. Yeah. Come, let's deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when the war breaks out, they also join themselves to our enemies and fight against us and escape out of the land. And they put taskmasters over them to afflict them with their burdens. And they built storage cities for Pharaoh at Pithom, at Ramses. And the more it's right up near the Goshen area, the delta of the Nile, just below that are those cities. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and the more they spread out. In fact, where people are oppressed about their belief in Messiah, more people believe. That's because the ones who believe don't recant, which tells the other people this is real. And they said they were distressed because of the sons of Israel. And Mitzrayim, Egypt, everything that is Egypt made at the sons of Israel to serve with cruelty. I don't put Egyptians because it's the entire Egyptian system. The whole system of the world is oppressing us. It's not just the people, it's everything they've created and the system they've set up. And they made it their lives bitter with hard service and mortar and brick and all manner of service in the field, at all their service which they cruelly made them to serve. The book of Revelation says it'll take everything you earn just to feed and clothe yourself. So it's the same thing's coming. And the king of it, they're also talking about universal income, negative interest rates, it's all control. Remember, Henry Kissinger said, if you control the money, you control the world. And the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew women, midwives, of whom the name of the one was Shifra, and the name of the other was Pu'ah. And he said, when you perform the duty of a midwife to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, then you shall kill at him. But if it is a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives reverently feared at Ha-Elohim, the God of gods, and did not do what the king of Egypt told them, but let the boys live. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said to them, why have you done this thing and let the boys live? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are vigorous and give birth before the midwife comes to them. This is a lie, but it preserves life. So what's the primacy here is the life. Because God, Elohim, dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and grew very mightily, and became very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives reverently feared at the God of gods, that he gave them families, spiritual and physical. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, now all of the people, you shall cast every son who is born into the river, and every daughter you shall let live. It's interesting, in China it's the opposite, and they've killed all the girls, and now they have their populations crashing. And there's no women. Yeah. And a man of the house of Levi went and took a daughter of Levi as wife. That's understood, took her. And the woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was tov, good or precious or goodly, she hid him 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took a papyrus ark, yes, the same word as the Ark of Noah, Teva, for him, and coated it with bitumen and pitch, which gives this dark red blood color. And she put, like dried blood, and she put the child in it and laid it in the reeds on the riverbank, which is the Nile. And his sister, this is Miriam, and his sister stood far off to discover what would happen. So she's some years older, say she's like 10, 12 years old. She's a young girl. Also, years later, you can say, hey, who do you think you are, Moses? If it weren't for me, you wouldn't be here. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe by the river. Why? Because they worshipped the Nile. Remember, this is the first curse because God says later on, it says he punished all the gods of Egypt. Remember Pharaoh, they all come down, they had this big worship area, and they would come down to the river. It wasn't just to take a look at the river. So they came to bathe at the river. This is the same thing the Indians do, a dot. They worship the Ganges, that sewer in the middle of India. And her maidens walked along the riverside, and she saw at the ark among the reeds, and sent at her handmaid to get it. And she opened and saw at the child, and behold, A baby cried, and she had compassion on him and said, "This is one of the children of the Hebrews." And her sister said to the daughter of Pharaoh, "Should I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women, that she may nurse at the child for you?" Now notice she has compassion. This tells me something about the house of this Pharaoh in this house, because he allows this Hebrew child in there. So it's you want life and you don't. You see a child and how can you kill it? Go ahead.
That Pharaoh
This is the evil Pharaoh.
Not the one that Moses battled.
No. Yeah, right. And his sister said to Pharaoh, "Should I go and call?" So she said, "Yeah." And the daughter of Pharaoh said, "Yeah, go." And the Alma, that's Miriam, the young maiden, went and called at the mother of the child. So Moses' mother gets to raise him or wean him. And the daughter of Pharaoh said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the boy grew, and she brought him to, now we're using this boy grew. We don't know how old he was. We know that later on he knows he's a Hebrew. He knows about Jehovah. He knows about the 400 years, 4 generations that Messiah will come. So he's not some 2-year-old child that gets sent, that goes to the house of Pharaoh. So the boy grew, and she brought him to the daughter of Pharaoh, and he became her son. And she called his name Moshe, and said, "Because I drew him out of the water," which is what it means. Drawn out, as in saved from the water, right? So who's the one that draws us out of the people, the water of the world? It's Messiah. And it came to pass in those days when Moshe had grown up that he went out to his brethren and looked on their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian striking a Hebrew, one of his brethren. He looked this way and that, and when he saw that there was no one, he murdered the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. That's right. Beating someone is not a death sentence. It's not nice, but that this is murder. That's why later on in the New Testament it says Michael, the one who is like God, Messiah, argued with Satan over the bones of Moses. Because Satan says he's a murderer, and Messiah says, "No, he's mine. He's confessed." And he went out the second day, behold, now there's 2 Hebrew men were fighting each other, and he said to him that did the wrong, "Why do you strike your fellow?" And he said, "Who made you a prince and a judge over us?" When Messiah came, he would do this to people. He said, "Well, you're doing the wrong thing." He says, "Who made you? Who are you? Do you intend to murder me as you murdered at the Egyptian?" And Moses was afraid and said, "Surely the deed is known." And Pharaoh heard of this deed and sought to kill it, Moses. But Moshe fled from the face of Pharaoh and lived in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well. So if you look at the Red Sea, use my hand here. Red Sea, here's the Red Sea, and the 2 fingers at the top. And here's the Sinai, and the Mediterranean's here. Well, this area right in here is the land of Midian. It's present-day northwestern Saudi Arabia. But in those days, it will eventually become the land of the Horites, that area, Midian. They're kind of overlapping here. And to this day, there's a place called the Well of Moses. This is where Sinai is, and Horeb. It's not in the Sinai Peninsula. It's actually in the land of Saudi Arabia today. And the Saudis know this. They actually want to start a tourist business of people going to visit that area. But Moses fled from his face, and now he lives in the land of Midian. Now Midianites come from, that's right, Keturah, the wife that Abraham had after Sarah died. And the Cohen of Midian, so this is the high priest is what this is, had 7 daughters, and they came near and drew water and filled at the troughs of water of the flock of their father. And the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moshe rose up and delivered them and watered at their flock. And when they came to Reuel, friend of God, which God though? See, this has to change. This has to change in his life. It does change, yeah. It does change. And his title is His Excellency. So when we get to that Torah portion called Yitro, it's actually about the excellency of Jehovah, not the excellency of Reuel. Because he eventually is going to say, "Now I know that Jehovah is the God of gods," right? They came to Reuel, their father, and said, "How is it that you have returned so early?" And he said, "An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and moreover, he drew water for us and watered at our flock." And he said to his daughters, "Where is he? Why is it that you have left the man? Invite him, that he may eat bread." And Moshe was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moshe Zipporah his daughter, and she bore a son, and he called his name Gershom, stranger, for he said, I have been a sojourner, and a stranger in a strange land, a sojourner in a foreign land. So, by the way, word ger is stranger. And it came to pass in the course of those many days that the king of Egypt died, and the sons of Israel sighed because of the bondage, and they cried, and their crying ascended up to Elohim because of the bondage. And Elohim heard at their groaning, and Elohim remembered at his covenant, remembered at the Brito, at Avraham, at Yitzchak, at Yaakov, at his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Elohim saw at the sons of Israel, and Elohim acknowledged them. They're really crying out now.
So it implies that the guy got worse. The new Pharaoh got worse.
Yes, the new Pharaoh got worse. Yeah. It just got worse. And well, that's what's happened in our world. In the United States, it's getting worse and worse. The whole world, it's not going to get better, folks. And Moses was tending at the flock of Yitro. That's his title. His Excellency, his father-in-law, near Cohen of Midian. So now we're told, he's the priest of Midian, by the way. He's not just some priest. And the flock, now Moses is going to be the high priest, Melchizedek, king and priest of the Hebrew people, and he worshiped and working for Jehovah. And Midian's doing the same thing for the Midianites. So now the two are interacting. And later on, years later, when Sisera gets killed, it's one of the descendants of Yitro, Yael, who puts a tent peg through the head of Sisera. And that's a descendant of Yitro, of Reuel. So, and he led at the flock to the back of the wilderness and came to the mountain of the God of gods, to Horeb. Now, notice what I put here. It's the name of mountain and also the range of mountains in the Midian wilderness. So there is Mount Horeb, but there's also the range of the mountain range called by the same name. And the Malach Yehovah, the angel, the messenger of Jehovah. I need to get rid of this because angel has a bad context. I've already changed it. This is an older translation. But it just means messenger of Elohim, which is God himself, by the way. This Malach Yehovah, it's a term used of Messiah. Appeared to him in a flame of fire and out of the midst of the bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, but the bush was not burned up. So this is the Shekinah, the Shekinah. Tomato, right? Shekinah of God, the glory of God in the bush. And Moshe said, I will turn aside now and see at this great sight. Why is the bush not burnt? And when Jehovah, okay, we're going to go back here. And the messenger of Elohim appeared to him in the flame of the fire. And he goes to look at it and says, when Jehovah saw that he turned aside to see, Elohim called to him out of the bush. So Jehovah is the messenger of Jehovah. Called him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moshe, Moshe. And he said, Hineni, here I am. He said, do not approach here. Put off the sandals from off your feet, because the place that you are standing is Admat Kodesh, ground of holiness. It's the Holy of Holies. That's where God is. This is like the Ark of the Covenant. This is Mount Sinai. This is Mount Horeb. This is wherever God is. That's the holy place, the Holy of Holies. Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob. And Moshe hid his face, for he had reverently feared to look toward the God of gods, Ha Elohim. And Jehovah said, I have surely seen an affliction of Ami, my people, who are in Egypt. Remember, Pharaoh's going to say, no, they're my people, Ami, and both real God, Jehovah, and the spokesman for Satan, who said they're both saying they're my people, who are in Egypt, and at their shrieks from before their taskmasters have heard, for I know at their sorrows. Now remember, we have the taskmasters of the Egyptians, the officers which are doing the work of the taskmasters, their own Hebrews abusing Hebrews. Just like the concentration camps. And I've come down to deliver them from the hand of Egypt, to bring them up out of that land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of Ha-Canaani and Ha-Chitti and Ha-Emori and Ha-Perizi and Ha-Chivi and Ha-Yebusi, the Jebusites. Now, so they're always the last on the list, and they lived in Jerusalem. And so David finally conquered Jerusalem. All said the Jebusites still live among us, still live in the city. And now behold, the cry of the sons of Israel has come up to me. Moreover, I have seen it, the oppression with which Egypt oppresses at them. Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring forth at my people, the sons of Israel, out of Egypt. Now remember, this is the same Pharaoh who has a death warrant, an arrest warrant, and a death sentence on Moses. So he's thinking, oh, if I go back, this Pharaoh is going to want to kill me. So this is preparation for the conversation between God and Moses. And Moses said to Elohim, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? And that I should bring out the sons of Israel out of Egypt? He said, surely, God said to him, surely I will be with you. And this will be the sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought forth at the people out of Egypt, you shall serve at the God of gods on this mountain. And Moses said to Elohim, behold, when I come to the sons of Israel and tell them, Elohe Avotechem, the God of your fathers, has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? Shemo. What shall I tell them? And Jehovah said to Moshe, Yeh asher yeh. I am who I am, or can be I will be who I will be. I'm self-existent. I just am. All right? And he said, you shall tell Bnei Israel this, Yea. So notice is just there's the only difference here is the vav and the aleph. Now the aleph in front of a verb says I. That's the I. Like bara is to create, abara is I create. So now it says but if you just make yea, I am that I am. I exist is what he's saying. I exist. So I am it's actually better to say I'm existing. I exist. I exist has sent me to you. But I am, that's fine. That's how most people understand it, so I leave it that way. And Elohim said further to Moses, you shall tell at the sons of Israel this, Jehovah, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. See, this is his name now. Generationally, he's taken on, as we've taken on his name and he's taken on our name. This is my name, singular, forever, and this is my memorial to all generations. Notice it's not the God of Abraham, Ishmael, on down, because that's what the Muslims say. He's the God of Abraham and Ishmael. And they say Ishmael was the one that was bound. That's why they circumcised their sons at 13 and not at 8 days, because Ishmael was circumcised at 13. So that's why God keeps this genetic line in his name and differentiates that split from Abraham's line. It tells you which line he comes down. Go and gather at the elders of Israel together and tell them, Jehovah, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to me, saying, I see and have surely come to visit at all of you, you in the plural, and at that which is done to you in Egypt. And I have said, I will bring at all of you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Hacanaani, Hachiti, Hamori, Haperizi, and Hachivi, Vechachivi, Vehayabusi. To the land flowing with milk and honey. It's a nice place. Milk and honey. And they will listen to your voice, and you shall come, and you and the elders of Israel, to the king of Egypt, and you shall tell him, Jehovah, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us, and now please let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to Jehovah our God. And that's not a far journey. If he had just been obedient at this time, it would have been a whole different relationship between Egypt and Jehovah and his people. They would have been one, could have become one people, and Egypt would not have been destroyed. If this country will repent, it would not get destroyed, but it's not going to. The world will not. It says, Revelation's real clear. Even though God has these tremendous punishments on the whole earth, they curse God and do not repent. Now, I read in parts of the Old Testament where the descendants of Jacob say, when we say yes, the punishment is just. We don't curse God. We say, we're sorry, what you're doing is correct. Then God can then say, now the punishment is over. But for the world that rejects him, the punishment never ends. The smoke of their torment goes up forever. They are killed. I know that the king of Egypt will not give you permission to go, but by a strong hand, or a hand of strength, Yad Hazaka. And I will stretch forth that Yadi, my hand, and strike at Mitzrayim, Egypt, with all my wonders which I will do in the midst of it. And after that, he will let you go. In fact, he's going to force you out of town. And I will give the people at favor. And he's telling Moses the whole plan from beginning to end here. And then, as typical of the Bible, what's going to happen is described, and then the events are described after it. So, now we'll give the people favor in the sight of Egypt. This is as they're leaving, right? And it will come to pass when you go out that you will not go empty. But every woman shall ask of her neighbor and of her who visits her house jewels of silver. This is salvation. Jewels of gold, that's holiness. And clothing, which is priesthood. This could have belonged to Egypt also, if they had just obeyed. But since they reject God, the gifts that he offered them go to God's people. And you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, and you shall plunder at Egypt. Your oppressors that will oppress the oppressors. And Moses answered and said, but behold, they will not believe me nor listen to my voice, for they will say, Jehovah has not appeared to you. And Jehovah said to him, what is that in your hand? And he said, a staff, a mate, a staff. And he said, throw it on the ground. And he threw it on the ground and it became a serpent, and Moses fled from it. Let me tell you, there's some nasty snakes in Saudi. Some bad snakes. And Jehovah said to Moshe, stretch out your hand and take it by the tail. Also some really bad spiders too, those camel spiders. Anyway, stretch out your hand and take it by the tail. And he stretched forth his hand and laid hold of it, and it became a staff in his palm. So he had fear, but when God said go ahead and do it, he could do it. That they may believe you, that Jehovah, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you. And Jehovah said further unto him, put now your hand in your bosom. Be Napoleon. And he put his hand in his bosom. When he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. He said, now put your hand inside your bosom again. He put his hand inside his bosom again, and when he took it out of his bosom, behold, it was restored like his flesh. Now that's, you can say that the snake, well, that's just a trick. But everyone knows that leprosy is incurable. It's a death sentence. Now it will come to pass, if they do not believe or listen to your claim for the first sign, they will believe the claim of the latter sign. And it will come to pass, if they will not believe these two signs, nor listen to your voice, that you shall take the water of the Nile, the river, and pour it on the dry land, and the water which you take out of the river will become blood on the dry land. So the first plague that Aaron and Moses, because Aaron actually the actor, the doer, but Moses is the instructor, strike the Nile, that turns to blood. What's the first miracle that Yeshua did? He took the water at the marriage in Canaan and turned it into wine. And Moses said to Pharaoh, alas, Lord, I am not eloquent, neither before now, nor since you have spoken to your bondservant, for I am slow of speech and of a slow tongue. By the way, this is refuted in the New Testament. He's prevaricating. He's still afraid of Moses. He's thinking, he's afraid of Pharaoh that has a death sentence out on him. And Jehovah said to him, who gives speech to a person? Or who makes one mute, deaf, seeing, or blind? Is it not I, Jehovah? Now therefore, go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall speak. And he said, Adonai, Lord, please send someone else.
Here we go.
That's prophet.
Yeah.
That's prophet.
You don't desire the job, but it's given to you.
He's not getting out.
Well, when Yeshua says you're his prophet or whatever you are for him, that's it. You can either go willingly or he's going to grab you by the collar and drag you. So, and here comes the collar grab. And the anger, the anger of Jehovah blazed up against Moses. And he said, is there not Aaron, your brother, the Levite? I know that he can speak well. And moreover, behold, he comes forth to meet you. And when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. Now, parenthetically, we're going to get this little parenthetical story here. But all this time, Aaron has already, we're going to learn a little later on here, God has already spoken to Aaron and says, you need to go to the land of Midian. Don't worry, I'll show you exactly where to go. And just as they're finished talking, there's Aaron. It doesn't look that way, but I'll show you where it happens. And you shall speak to him and put at Hadevarim the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and will teach at you at what you shall do. And he will be your spokesman to the people, and it will come to pass that he will be to you as a mouth, your speaker, right? And you will be to him as Elohim. And that you shall take this staff in your hand with which you shall do at the signs. And Moshe went out and returned to Yitro, his father-in-law. So here's our parenthetical story, because now we're going to jump back to the mountain here in a bit. Went back to his father-in-law and said, please let me go and return to my brothers who are in Egypt and see whether they are still alive. And Yitro, this is Reuel, remember, he's now calling him by his title, Your Excellency is what he's saying. Your Excellency, may I, said to Moses, go in peace. And Jehovah said to Moshe, in Midian, go, return into Egypt, for all the men who sought at your soul are dead. So you were so worried, don't worry, I'm in charge of everything. That Pharaoh's gone, they're not looking for you anymore, you can go back. And Moses took at his wife and at his sons and set them on a male donkey, and he returned to the land of Egypt. And Moshe, took at Mateh ha-Elohim, the staff of the God of gods, in his hand. And Jehovah said to Moshe, when you go back into Egypt, see that you go before Pharaoh, do before Pharaoh all the wonders which I have put in your hand, but I will harden at his heart, and he will not let at the people go. So now he does the first. Pharaoh just makes it harder. He says, you hadn't even let the people go. He says, I already told you here. Didn't you read chapter 4, verse 21? Remember, Moses is writing all this. Moshe is writing this. And he's probably going to say, look, there's no numbers yet. Anyway, you shall tell Pharaoh, thus says Jehovah, Israel is Beni Bechori, my son, my firstborn. And I have said to you, let at my son go, that he may serve me. So this is the body of Messiah, the son, right? Because remember, the sons of Israel, plural, are my firstborn, singular. They are as my son, right? Let my son go, that he may, this is singular talking about a group. This is sometimes you see in Hebrew, you see that vav at the end of a noun, indicating a he, but it's really talking about a group. This is now more directly spoken that way. And he refused to let him go. Behold, I will kill at your son, your firstborn. But see, kill your son here, singular, your firstborn. He's going to kill all the firstborn. The body of Satan he's going to kill. So now this is the last of the plagues. After this, Pharaoh says, get out of town and do it fast. And it came to pass on the way at the lodging place that Jehovah met him and sought to kill him. And Zipporah took a flint and cut off at the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet. And she said, surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me. Yeah, he bled for us. Yeshua did. And he let him alone, and she said, a bridegroom of blood because of the circumcision, because of the covenant. Yeshua covenanted with us to die for us, to bleed for us. Nothing can cleanse us except the blood of this covenant, Messiah's blood. Jehovah said to Aaron, so now we're back in time. Now we're back before, as Moses starts his discussion, even before he starts his discussion on the mountain of God, and he's talking, you're going to be my leader in Egypt. He's already, before then, he's talking to Aaron. Because then he says to Aaron, go into the wilderness to meet Moses. And he went up and met him on the mountain on God's mountain and kissed him. Well, that's where they were having the discussion. He says, well, here's your brother. The one you said you can't speak clearly. All of a sudden, Aaron shows up. And it's a good journey, right? It's not just like, it's like a week. Anyway, Moses told Aaron, and he told him all the words which Jehovah he had set, with which he had sent him, and at all the signs which he had charged him. And Moses and Aaron went and gathered at all the elders of the sons of Israel. So this journey with the sons, with his wife and the sons, Aaron is with them. That's what I'm saying. So that was just like a story. Now we jump back in time, and then we jump forward in time real quickly. Because Aaron's there, and now they're already on the journey from 27 to 29. It's kind of a catch-up moment there. And Aaron spoke at all the words which Jehovah had spoken to Moses, and did the signs in the sight of the people, the staff on the ground, the hand and the bosom, right? And the people believed, and when they heard that Jehovah had visited at the sons of Israel, and that he had seen at their affliction, and they bowed down and worshipped. Thank you. Yeshua is about to save us, but it's going to take a 3.5-year tribulation, folks. These people are about to go through 3.5 years of tribulation. It's the same time Abraham went through when he went into Egypt. And he plagued the house of Pharaoh with great plagues. And then Aaron was kicked out of town. Okay. And afterward, Moses came and said to Pharaoh, "This is what Jehovah, the God of Israel, says, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." And Pharaoh said, "Who is Jehovah?" And that's a fair question for him because he doesn't know who Jehovah is. But guess what his grandfather did? Nebuchadnezzar's grandson. I don't know Jehovah, but what's his Daniel? I think he does know Jehovah. Because what did Daniel then say to him? And you know all this stuff. So he's lying here. Who is Jehovah that I should listen to his voice? To let Israel go. I do not know Jehovah. And moreover, I will not let Israel go. So when you deny Jehovah, why do you deny Jehovah? So you can do what you want to do. So when people say there is no God, that's a religion that takes a lot more faith than to believe that that Jehovah is God. And they said, "The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Please let us go a journey of 3 days into the wilderness and sacrifice to Jehovah our God, lest he fall on us with pestilence or with the sword." 3 days. It would have been gone a 3-day weekend. Then they'd have come back. It's an opportunity to join together. Egypt could have joined to Jehovah. And the king of pardon?
Pharaoh's got to give up power to it.
Yeah, and also remember, he thinks he's a god because they declare themselves to be a son. That Ramses, that city, it means child of the sun god. Well, Pharaoh says he's a child of the sun god, half man. Strange, they all died just like everybody else. Anyway, and the king of Egypt said to them, "Why do you, Moshe and Aharon, dismiss at the people from their work? Get back to your burdens." And Pharaoh said, "Behold, the people of the land are now many, and you maketh them rest from their burdens." And the same day, Pharaoh commanded at the taskmasters of the people and at their officers. Now, these are the Hebrews, or the officers. So taskmasters tells the officers what to make the people do, saying, "You shall no longer give the people straw to make as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. A denarius and a denarius. Feed and clothe yourself." That's oppression. Now it becomes impossible. This is what God has allowed. It's going to be impossible to do what the world wants. "And at the number of bricks which you made before you shall require from them. You shall not diminish anything of it, for they are idle. Therefore they are crying, let us go and sacrifice to our God. Let heavier work be laid on the men, that they may labor therein, and do not let them pay attention to lying words." Because now we're getting down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you put people in fear of their very existence, then the thought is here, then they won't have time for anything else. Right? Sorry, it doesn't work that way with God. "And the taskmasters of the people who went out and their officers, and they spoke to the people, saying, This is what Pharaoh says, I will not give you straw. Go yourselves, get straw where you can find it, for nothing of your work shall be diminished." Used to have one job, now people have to have 3 jobs with no benefits, no insurance, right? All part-time jobs. "Go yourself, get straw where you can find it, for nothing of your work shall be diminished." And the people were scattered abroad throughout all the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. And the taskmasters were urgent, saying, "Fulfill your work quota daily as when there was straw." And the officers of the sons of Israel, whom the taskmasters of Pharaoh had set over them, were beaten and demanded, "Why have you not fulfilled your quota both yesterday and today in making brick as before?" And the officers of the sons of Israel came and cried to Pharaoh, saying, "Why do you deal this way with your servants? We're trying, right? And no straw is given to your servants. They tell us, make bricks, and behold, your servants are beaten. But the fault is in your own people, the taskmasters." And he said, "You are idle, you are idle." Notice now Pharaoh's this emphatic voice, trying to speak like a god. "Moshe, Moshe, you are idle, you are idle." Same. Yeah. "Therefore you say, let us go and sacrifice to Jehovah. Go therefore now and work, for no straw shall be given to you, yet you shall deliver the same number of bricks." And the officers of the sons of Israel saw that they were in trouble, and when it was said, "You shall not diminish anything from your daily quota of bricks." And they met at Moshe and at Aharon, who stood by the way as they came forth from at Pharaoh. And they said to them, "May Jehovah look at you and judge." because you have made it our savor to be abhorred in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants to put a sword in their hand to kill us. This is almost the same words that Jacob said to his sons. He says, you have made me odious among the Canaanites. And what did this cause? Actually, they turned more toward God. They got rid of their idols, hid them under that tree of strength. And when they went up to the house of God, the fear of God was put on the people to not harm them. Same coming here again. And Moses returned to Jehovah and said, Lord, why have you brought trouble to this people? Why is it that you have sent me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has brought only trouble on the people. Neither have you delivered at the people at all. But God already told them it's going to happen. But when you're getting whacked, the boss is beating you, you forget. Jehovah said to Moshe, oh, now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh. For by a hand of strength, a strong hand, he shall let them go. And by a strong hand, he will drive them out of his land. And our Haftorah portions come from Isaiah 27:28, also 2 verses from chapter 29, and all of chapter 1 into chapter 2 of Jeremiah. First part, Yeshayahu, Isaiah 27:6 through 28:13. And in the coming of days, Yaakov, Jacob, shall take root. Israel shall blossom. Jacob, Israel, right? As we return to God, Israel, overcome with him, shall blossom and bud, and they shall fill the face of the world with fruit. Pnei Tevel. Has he smitten him as he smote those who smote him? Is he slain according to slaughter of them that were slain by him? In measure when you send them away, you do contend with them. He has removed them in his rough blast in the day of the east wind. Yom Kadim. So it's really, the wind is kind of understood here. It actually says day of the east. Wind is understood. Therefore by this shall the iniquity, the sin of Jacob be forgiven. And this is all the fruit of taking away his sin, that he make all the stones of the altar as chalk stones that were beaten in pieces, and the Asherah poles and images shall rise no more. This is when Jacob says, get rid of all your foreign gods. That's what that's talking about. For the fortified city is solitary, the habitation deserted and forsaken, like the wilderness. There shall the calf feed, and there shall he lie down and consume the branches thereof. And when the boughs thereof are withered, they shall be broken off. The women come and set them on fire, for it is a people without understanding. Therefore he has made them that have, he that made them will have no compassion upon them, and he that formed them will show them no favor. And it shall come to pass in that day, Vahaya Bayu Yom Hahu, this is millennium speak, right? Whenever you see that, Bayom Hahu, that Jehovah will thresh from the flood of the river, this Parat, the Euphrates, unto the brook of Mitzrayim. So Assyria down to Egypt. So now we're talking Ephraim and Yehuda, the two houses. He's going to thresh from it. He will gather from it. Unto the brook, and you shall be gathered one by one, you sons of Israel, restored back to the land in the millennium. And it shall come to pass in that day that a great shofar shall be blown, this Yom Teruah, the day of alarm. It's announcing that Messiah has come to set up his millennial kingdom, and they shall come that were ready to perish in the land of Assyria, and they that were outcast in the land of Egypt. Again, this refers to Yehuda, Ephraim and Yehuda. Ephraim was taken up by the Assyrians, and Egypt, that's after the Romans destroyed Jerusalem, they were sent to Egypt. And they shall worship Jehovah in the holy mountain, Jerusalem, right? Mount of Olives. Woe to the crown of pride of the drunkard of Ephraim, and to the fading flower of his glorious beauty, which is on the head of the fat valley of them that are overcome with wine. Behold, a strong and mighty Lord, like a storm of hailstones, a destroying storm, like a flood of mighty waters overflowing, he will cast down to earth in his hand. Now it is interesting that the last of the plagues, the book of Revelation, giant hailstones come down. The crown of pride, the drunkards of Ephraim shall be trampled underfoot. The glorious beauty which is on the head of the valley of oil shall be a fading flower, as the first ripe fig before summer, which he that looks upon it sees, while it is yet in his hand, he eats it up. In that day will Jehovah of hosts become a crown of glory. So, in the millennial kingdom, that's right. And for a diadem of beauty unto the remnant of his people. And for a ruach mishpat, a spirit of justice to him that sits in judgment, and strength to them that turn back the battle at the gate. And also these reel with wine and stagger with strong drink. Priest and prophet reel with strong drink. They are swallowed up of wine. They stagger with strong drink. They err in vision. They stumble in judgment. For all the tables are full of vomit, filth, without a clean place. At whom shall he teach knowledge? And at whom shall he make to understand the doctrine? Those weaned from the milk, drawn from the breasts. That's why Paul in the New Testament says, get off the mother's milk. Move on. Get into a deeper relationship. Because then comes a deeper understanding. For it is precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little. For with stammering lips, or in stammering lips, and with another tongue, will he speak thus to the people, to whom he said, this is the resting place. Give you rest to him that is weary, and this is the refreshing. Yet they would not hear. And therefore he said to them, shall the word of Jehovah be unto them, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little, that they may go and fall backward and be broken and snared and taken. So one way of saying this, and to God's people he speaks and teaches, and we get closer, but to the ones who reject him, they get the same word, but they reject it. Therefore, thus says you, this is from Isaiah 29, 22, 23. For thus says Jehovah, who redeemed at Abraham, concerning the house of Jacob. Jacob shall not now be ashamed, neither shall his face now wax pale. But when he sees his children, the work of my hands, in the midst of them, they shall sanctify my name. Yea, they shall sanctify it, the Holy One of Jacob, and that the God of Israel shall stand in awe of. So when we are restored to the kingdom, we see all of the body of Messiah. And this is from Jeremiah 1:1 to 2:3. So, Divrei Yirmiyahu ben Hilkiyahu, the words of Jeremiah the son of Hilkiah, the priests that were in Anatot, in the land of Benjamin, to whom came. This is Messiah showing up. That's why it's using the to be verb instead of the bow. It's not just some word coming to him. Messiah is coming to him. And was Devar Yehovah in the days of Yoshiyahu ben Ammon, king of Yehuda, in the 13th year of his reign. And he was in the days of Jehoiakim ben Yoshiyahu, king of Yehuda, until the 11th year of Tzidkiyahu ben Yoshiyahu, king of Yehuda, unto the exile of Jerusalem in the 5th month. So this is the king that gets blinded. Zedekiah. Yeah. Zedkiyahu. Yeah. Yeah, he is righteous. Yeah, he is. Yeah. It's the one that burns Jeremiah's scroll, and it says, what did it say? It says, all you have to do is confess that you're a sinner, basically. Yeah. That Nebuchadnezzar is going to take over, that your prophets aren't telling the truth. He says, I can't do that. It'd be too embarrassing. Yeah, okay. Then he sees all his officers, his whole government, and all his sons killed in front of his eyes, and then they poke his eyes out. So until this exile of Jerusalem, that's when Nebuchadnezzar destroys Jerusalem. And Devar Yehovah was to me saying, before I fashioned you in the womb, now this is known as meiosis, this is when the egg and the sperm meet. Everything else is mitosis, division. So at that moment, you are who you are. So he says, when I fashioned you in the womb, I knew you. And before you came forth out of the womb, I sanctified you. I have assigned you as a prophet unto the tribes, unto the nations, Goyim, which is more tribal than countries. And I said, alas, Adonai Yehovah, behold, I do not know how to speak, for I am a boy. And Yehovah said to me, do not say, I am a boy, for to whomever I shall send you, you shall go. And that I shall command you, you shall speak. Do not be afraid because of them, for I am with you to defend you, saith Yehovah. So that's an emphatic form. It's a done deal. This is not conditional. And Jehovah put forth at his hand and touched my mouth. And Jehovah said to me, behold, I have put my words in your mouth. See, I have set this day you over Goyim, tribes, and over kingdoms, to pluck up and to break down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant. And Devar Yehovah was to me saying, what do you see, Yirmiyahu? And I said, I see a makel shaked, a staff of almond. Tree, understood. Almond wood, right? And Jehovah said to me, you have seen well, for ani shoked al devari. I watch over my words to accomplish it. So every time I read this, I'm reminded this is what hooked me on Hebrew and wanting to put more and more Hebrew and learn it. Because this is what I call wordplay. Shaked and shoked are the same consonants with a slightly different vowel pointing. So you notice, so one is about almond and the other means to watch over. So guess what? What's the almond branch?
Levi.
That's Levi, because Aaron's rod budded and brought forth almonds. So the house of Aaron, that high priesthood, his job is to watch over God's word. And that's what the Levites do today. They faithfully have, in Hebrew, copied the entire Old Testament letter for thousands of years. They have done what they're supposed to do. Now comes when they come into a belief and understanding of who Yeshua is, then this word is really going to have power and impact. It'll change them. So it happened to Paul. As soon as he understood that Yeshua is the Messiah, all of a sudden, all the stuff I learned before is a waste of time. Yeshua is God. And was Devar Yehovah to me a second time, saying, what do you see? And I said, I see a boiling cauldron, and the face of it is from the north, so punishment tends to come from the north. Our wars with North Korea, North Vietnam, missiles come over the polar north route. And Jehovah said to me, out of the north shall evil break forth on all the inhabitants of the earth. For behold, I will call all the families of the kingdoms of the north, saith Jehovah, emphatic, and they shall come, and they shall set everyone his throne at the entrance of Sha'ar Yerushalayim, the gates of Jerusalem. That's exactly, remember, Nebuchadnezzar conquered all the kingdoms around them, joined them to their military, became his military, and they literally set up all these groups, these leaders of all these different armies, and they encircled and besieged Jerusalem and then took it and burnt it. And against all the walls of it round about and against all the cities of Yehuda. And that's what they did. They conquered all the land, and at last they conquered Jerusalem. And I will utter my judgments upon them, touching all their wickedness, and that they have forsaken me. By the way, this is Jeremiah the prophet, and this time is when they were sent to 70 years in exile in Babylon, because for 490 years they did not give the land its Shemitah, its rest. So 490 divided by 7 is 70. So when he sent them to Babylon, then it says in Jeremiah, it says, now the land will have its rest, which is going to be repeated in the millennial kingdom for 6,000 years. We have not, this earth, the people of this earth have not given this earth, the land, its rest. So Messiah comes and sets up his kingdom. Now the land will have its, the earth will be refreshed, restored. It'll have its rest. So now utter my judgments upon them, touching all their wickedness, and that they have forsaken me and have burned incense to other gods and have worshipped the works of their own hands. Remember, Jeremiah saw in a vision that they were worshiping the sun god in the Holy of Holies, put the branches over their face. Like that's where the Catholic veil comes from. Worshiping sun worship stuff. You, gird up your loins, arise and speak unto them at all that I command you. Do not be dismayed before them, lest I dismay you before them. And behold, I have made you this day a fortified city and an iron pillar and bronze walls against all the land. Iron is punishment, bronze is judgment. That's what those metals mean. Against the kings of Yehuda, against the princes of it, against the priests of it, and against all the people of the land, the disobedient ones. Remember, by this time, just before the siege, the believers, the obedient ones, are now they should be in Babylon. That's where Daniel is. Jeremiah's up there too. And they shall fight against you, but they shall not prevail against you, for I am with you, saith Jehovah, to defend you. And was Devar Yehovah to me, saying, go forth and cry in the ears of Jerusalem, saying, thus says Jehovah, I remember you for the mercy of your youth, the love of your betrothals, how you went after me in the wilderness in a land that was not sown. The original Exodus. Kadesh Israel la Yehovah. Holy Israel to Yehovah, the first of his increase. All that devour him, Israel, shall be held guilty. Evil shall come upon them, saith Jehovah. That's right. Satan and all his will be destroyed. Remember, every part of the Bible is past tense, present tense, and future tense. It's also talking about our time. And now we get to Acts, the latter part of chapter 7 of Acts. This chapter 7 is the speech that Stephen gets before he gets stoned to death, and this is toward the end of it. And as the time of the promise drew near, which the God swore unto Abraham, the people increased and multiplied in Egypt until another king arose who did not know it, Joseph, And this one dealt slyly with our genos, our kindred, oppressed our fathers, causing their brephe, their newborn babies, to be exposed so as not to be kept alive, in which time Moses was born and was handsome to God, and he was nourished 3 months in the house of his father. That's after that he was put in the ark. And he being exposed, the daughter of Pharaoh lifted him up and nurtured him as a son unto her. And Moses was instructed in all the wisdom of Egypt and was powerful in words and in works. So much for what he was saying on the mountain. And when a period of 40 years was fulfilled unto him, it arose in his heart to look upon his brothers, the sons of Israel. And seeing one being wronged, he defended. And he avenged the one getting the worst, striking the Egyptian. And he thought his brothers would understand that God would give them salvation by his hand. But they did not understand. So when Messiah came, he offered salvation, but the people didn't understand. They thought they didn't recognize him at all. And on the following day, he appeared unto the ones fighting, and he interceded into peace, saying, "Man, you are brothers. Why are you injuring one another?" And the one injuring the neighbor thrust him away, saying, "Who appointed you a chief and judge over us?" Oof. "Are you willing to kill me in the manner that you killed the Egyptian yesterday?" And Moses fled at this word, and he became a sojourner in the land of Midian, where he fathered 2 sons. And that's the end of that.
I mean, interesting that the first time I noticed it, it said when he's at the age of 40, he came upon his heart to look after his brethren. So that means the first 40 years, he's just kind of, like all of us, he's kind of in the world, fighting battles for Pharaoh and such, and then
he's the commander-in-chief of the Egyptian army. He had already won a massive battle against the Ethiopians. His wife, his Cushite wife, was a prize given to him as part of the peace treaty with the Ethiopians. This guy was living the life, shall we say. He's living in a palace. He's married to Pharaoh. Pharaoh's daughter is his mother. He's part of the royal household. God does this to us. At some point in your lives, you say, there has to be more to life than this. It's not about stuff. It's not about parties, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's not about power or fame or whatever people go after. Look at all these famous people: suicides, alcohol, drugs, multiple relationships, unhappy, depressed. I read over and over because I'd like to look up, see a movie or something. Yeah, it's a pretty good actor. And their lives are just, rarely do you see that they were married for 40 years with the same person. It's all just horrible stuff. Almost all of them had problems with drugs and alcohol. They're trying to fill a place in their heart that only God can fill. So that's what comes later on in your life, says why am I here? I can remember as a young child, says, why wasn't I born in some place where children starve to death? Why am I here? Why did my parents decide to leave Holland? Why am I in Fresno, California, of all places? Why? Because it's God's choice. What did Mordecai tell Esther? You were born for such a time as this. We were all brought here into existence at this time for God's purpose. What is his purpose? If we do the right thing, he will bless us. If we do the wrong thing, he will punish us. But if we are appointed to do his work, we are his, and we're going to do it. We might go through some hard times, but we're going to do what we're supposed to do. God has he appointed Jeremiah. Look at David. He was king, the first real king of Israel, because Saul is not considered the first king. He said, now the sword will never depart your house. He lost 4 sons. 2 of them tried to murder him. 1 raped his wife. Slept with his wife on the top of the roof. Saul tried to kill him for years. I mean, he went through some hard stuff. But the stuff we do in our lives comes back, good and bad, rolls upon us. The seeds we plant, wherever they are. It could be 30 years in the past. Now, some people aren't old enough to have planted seeds 30 years ago. I think I have one brewing from like 50 years ago. Who knows? Everything we do, there's cause and effect to everything. But the one thing we need in our lives is to turn to Messiah and say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Help me to be your person, a better person. Does he want to kill us? No, he wants to save us. He's looking for that person that says, I'm sorry. All who call on his name will not be disappointed. That's what all this is about. Jeremiah wasn't there to destroy. He wasn't a prophet of destruction. He was a prophet begging the people, please obey God. Let Nebuchadnezzar rule over you. Everything will be fine. Then when they didn't do that, it says, okay, now you just pick up your stuff in peace, right? You'll pack up your bags, get the Allied moving van and move to Babylon. And you'll be fine there. You can have your businesses. Nothing's going to change. You're just going to live in Babylon now instead of here. And the ones that didn't do that, they ended up dying. All through the Bible, God says, why should I continue punishing you if you're not going to change? So punishment, blessing and curse are both a blessing. The hedges, that's the path, that's the guarding borders, but the thorns are the ones, if you want to vary off the path, then the thorns are going to get you to bring you back in the path. It's not to thorn you, it's to get you back on the path. So Lord Yeshua, we thank you that your desire is to keep us in this path of salvation. Help us, Lord Yeshua, to follow you. You are the pillar. Cloud by day, fire by night. In these end times, it's going to get really weird. And most of the world are going to give up and give themselves over to a satanic one-world system so they can have bread for another day. Lord Yeshua, help us to be your bondservants. Forgive us, cleanse us, restore us, resurrect us, bring us. What we want to be is in your kingdom. We don't want to be here in this kingdom. We want to be in your kingdom. We give thanks for it in your holy name, Yeshua. Amen and amen. Okay, so we'll do the Hebrew lesson, then bless the children. Okay, go letter by letter here. Vav, Aleph, Lamed, so the dagesh or dot is telling you it's doubled. Like in the word swallow, there's two L's. In Hebrew, you just have one Lamed with a dot in it to double the sound and a hey at the end. Here's the Shavah, which means this Vav stands by itself. You tend to put an E sound with it. Aleph silent, but it's carrying a full note E, and the Lamed a half note E. Ve'ele. If there were no dot here, it'd be ele. With the dot, it becomes ele. And these, shin, again, here's the shva, so it stands by itself. Mim, vav. Now the vav is silent here. It's just carrying the O sound, and it goes into the ends in the T. So this is shmot, shemot. Shem is name. Shemot is names. Here's a bet. Again, the shva. Now, since there's a dot in it, it's a bet. If there were no dot in it, it would be a vet. And like here, give a V sound. So, be, this is a noon, full note E going into the yod. Now we get a diphthong. So, nay. This is how we get the long A sound in vowel sound in Hebrew, is with the E into the yod. So, be, nay. Ben is son. Bene is sons or sons of. Okay, now we have, again, now this Shavaz, it's a syllable divider, right? So this is a yod with an E sound. It's a sin because it's on the left. Here's the shin dot on the right, sin dot on the left. The way to remember that is it's no sin to be left-handed. So yis, resh, aleph. This is a half note A, full note E into the lamed. So yis, ra, el. Our root word is actually yasher, which is to be upright. El is God. So upright before God or upright with God. So the teaching of those who overcome is a prince with God. Yisrael. Hey, full note A, bet, half note A, Aleph carrying the E into the yod, and this is this letter, the mim, in its final or sofit version. That's where we get the term sofit from, sofit, the end part. So ha-ba-im. So our actual root here is bo, and we have a single prefix and a double suffix. Yeah, ba is to come. Someone's coming or comers of, but this is the plural. So they, the ones who came, the comers. But in Hebrew, this is a tense. So who came to? Okay, here's mim, sade, e into this sade, resh, a, yod. So that's another syllable. And then here's mim and hey. The root here is actually Mitzrayim. This Mitzrayim is more like the place of Egypt. It's a tense kind of thing. So Mitzray ma. Here's another. That's how we get the long I sound, by the way. Mitzray. If there were no yod here, it'd be Mitzrah. So Mitzray ma. Mitzrayim, Egypt. Et. Here's the Aleph Tav. Full note E. This is the definitive direct object pointer. So that means there's a subject, and there's a verb, and there's someone that the verb acts upon. So who is it? The sons of Israel are the ones who come into Egypt at Jacob. So Jacob, who are the ones coming? It's actually Jacob is the one coming. So et ya ah. So the ain is very like the aleph in that it's silent and only carries vowel sounds, but since it has this, the way I remember, this is open at the bottom like an open throat. So the vowel is going to start with the soft. It has a soft start. This is closed like a closed throat. So this is an A. This is a quarter note A. This is the kof with an O into the vet. So this, if this were an A, it'd be Yaakov. But with the A, it becomes Yaakov. Yaakov, Jacob. Aleph, E into the yod, and there's the sheen. So ish. Ish. So in this case, the yod just lengthens this E sound. Ish. Doesn't change it, just lengthens it. Gives a bit of a yut to it. So it's ish, man. Now, each is understood. U, so this is the vav with just an u sound. This also means and or but because there's this soft vet in front of it, it's an u instead of a v sound. So u, ve, to. U, ve, to. And his house. There you go. Our root here is what? Beyt. And house of his. Now, this can also mean the whole family of Jacob. So this is, again, one of these singular masculine that refers to a body of people. Because each man and his house, right, all of them, ba'u, he came. Bet Aleph now loses its vowel sound. I'm not sure if the bet stole it or the vav stole it. But I'm thinking it's the bet because the u has to be there. Ba'u. Came. Well, it's actually he came. It's talking about this he, body, Jacob, and his family. So that's why these vowels are here at the end of these nouns. Okay, so we'll bless the children. I should just leave this here. It's where I use it all the time. Okay. Tom?